Today's podcast is brought to you by Our City Coffee. You know, I just finished some of our blueberry sunrise. Son of a mother, is it good? I'm not just saying that because it's ours. Lots of other people have been saying that. And maybe you can be one of those people saying the same damn thing. Go to ourcitycoffee.com, use the code BS, and get 15% off. Again, ourcitycoffee.com, code BS, 15% off right now. Why are you still listening? Go do it. Why are you listening to the podcast? Just go to ourcitycoffee.com. Use the code BS, get you some of our blueberry sunrise, or maybe you're into our buttery caramel or our community coffee, whatever you're feeling. Go order right now at checkout. Use the code BS, as in business and BS, and you'll get 15% off right now. I like the BS a lot, but we're not great at self-promoting, which we probably should do more of. And we talk about it a little bit on this podcast, but us at Current Media Co., we've helped brands and people earn over $1 million through our video marketing, content work, consulting, social media, all of the above. If you're in this space and you need some help or you just have some questions, feel free to reach out to us directly. We've worked in fitness, health, clothing, cannabis, worked with athletes, influencers. We've done a lot over the past handful of years. If you've got questions, if you want to work with us, if you need some new creative, reach out directly. You can DM us at Business and BS or at Current Media Co. or me directly at PW Current. Today on the podcast, we've got AJ Fuhrman. She just has a good energy to her. She also does PR with Micah Brown, who was our guest on the last podcast, the director of the 30 for 30, Chuck and Tito, now exclusively on ESPN+. We talk about how PR has changed over the years. She's been in it for over a dozen years in different capacities, different spaces. Now she's in entertainment, does a lot with indie films. But we talk about what goes into working with a person specific, working for a movie, and she does everything from setting up interviews to getting people on red carpets to working with people who have blogs that might fit for what they do. It's the PR is such an all-encompassing type thing, and she does it all on her end and does a damn good job of it. You can really feel her energy come through on this podcast, and we thank you for listening and hope you enjoy.
I'm morally opposed to video conference at all costs because I think God invented the telephone so that I didn't have to look at people. So I don't want a video conference. I don't want people to see me rolling my eyes at them.
Right, or like not paying attention.
Or checking my phone or doodling.
Yeah.
I'm a chronic doodler in meetings. So my big thing is I draw mazes.
Do you need me to get like a pad of paper out for you so you
for
can
the
doodle
podcast
here? While we're talking, yes.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. We like yesterday we were talking on the way in. We're rolling here, by the way.
Oh, okay.
We're in.
Welcome.
That's how we do
Hi.
it.
Welcome.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
Welcome. And we're talking with Micah, who you linked us up with.
Yeah.
And initially we get on, we're trying to do a Zoom combo, which was our first one. Usually we're here or the other places we've done podcasts, but in person.
Yeah.
You can kind of like, even though like, I don't know if we met at that social media club event.
Yeah,
but,
we met at
okay,
one.
like for like,
You and I don't think you were
Yeah.
there.
I don't get
2
out much.
seconds. Yeah. But it was like quick in and out, you know, and I knew who you were and like seen you on Twitter and that kind of deal. But it's always good to like have like a 10-minute rapport for people you don't really know and talk, and then you're more comfortable. And then if you want to say fuck, you say fuck instead of worrying about like what people might think.
I'll say fuck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fuck's good.
Great. It's
Mother,
my favorite word.
Mother loves it too.
Literally, mom texts us after everyone.
Oh my God,
you need to stop saying the F word.
my mom promised, my mom doesn't listen to podcasts, but I did promise her I would show her how so she could listen to this one. So maybe I should curtail my fucks. But
yeah, right. Curtail the fucks.
Hi, Mom. Yeah.
Hi, Mom, as well.
Yeah.
Well, my dad doesn't do anything, you know, so I have to send him links. So I'll send my dad a YouTube link. So all he has to do is click on it. Podcast, you still got to like subscribe and you got to go in. And it's a lot easier. So I do that.
Yeah, I think my mom is, it's weird that we're talking about this, but my mom is on an Android device. And I think her next phone will be an iPhone. And I think like she would like podcasts. So I will probably teach her how to use like the Apple Podcast.
There you go.
Great thing about my mom is like once you show her, she's got it. And like she loves the technology. She's into it. Like, you know, she's on Facebook. She's on Instagram. She loves all that stuff. So my mom's a very smart person. Like, yeah. So
I feel like if they would have just called it like, I don't know, AM radio on demand instead of calling it podcast, people wouldn't be like as opposed to it. Like,
I mean, really what we're doing here is a book on tape in a way, right? Like, but
it's all the same, but
it's because it started on an Apple iPod and they needed a clever name to give it and it became a podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Weird that it started like that though.
Yeah.
And weird that it even took that long to have like a not on demand.
Yeah.
Well, now it's just crazy, the growth in podcasting. I'm super into it. Like Shonda Rhimes just announced that she's starting a podcast production company with iHeart. Will Ferrell just announced he's starting a comedy only podcast company.
He's with iHeart too, isn't he?
Yeah, but they're just, these guys are getting funded like crazy for podcasts.
And why not?
Yeah, why not? Well, and the production cost is low. The ROI is, if you're good at it, if you're a Will Ferrell, you could probably make a lot of money with advertising and so forth. I'm sure
you could kill it.
I mean, there's 700,000 plus podcasts right now, and I don't know how many of them are actually making money, but Will Ferrell probably is. Conan, Joe Rogan, Adam Carolla, these guys, the Earwolves and the Podcast One guys.
I know. I talked to I don't want to say the name, but like a top 100 podcast, and it was like 6,000 for a read on one podcast.
Oh, wow.
And this was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I know they had, I'd say 4 to 5 per podcast. Yeah. So you're looking at
4 to 5, and then like front and back end too. So you're doubling that.
Well, look, I was at Adam Carolla's studio on Friday with Micah Brown and Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell, and he's got a full studio, like all on his own. He's
better than our studio.
Yeah, this is pretty.
Nice. It's only slightly nicer than your living room.
A little bit.
He's got, he also does all his car restorations there. So it's this big, massive, it's a very cool space. Anyway, he could record more than one podcast at a time. He's got different studios. It's a whole operation. So could you imagine?
Well, it is a 2-bedroom apartment.
Oh,
throw a bunch of
Adam
mics around and
lucky.
just talk. Yeah.
You know what I'd like to do though? The baby doesn't sleep in the room yet. He's only 5 weeks. So it's like, why not make that a podcast studio or a studio for something? We're not using he sleeps with us.
Yeah. That'll be an issue when he's older, but for now, who cares?
Yeah. A couple months. Let's be efficient with
Dad, how come I got all these microphones in my room?
Yeah. Well, look, I've got a nephew who's 16, 17 months old, and all he wants is just to be with daddy anyway. So like, what does he need a room for?
Right? Yeah. I agree. So I started on the Zoom thing. So we go and have the Zoom. We didn't want to do that. I shouldn't say that. Tim didn't want to do Zoom, or Tim wanted to do Zoom.
I've been wanting to.
I don't. Yeah. I like the sit down.
Sure. In person is always preferable for press. Yeah.
But whatever. You got to do your thing, and we wanted to have the convo, so we said fuck it. So we go on. Zoom doesn't work. He's in middle of nowhere, Nebraska, just out of his high school. And he's like, it's all scratchy. And I'm like, all right, let's just figure it out a different way. So we end up putting the camera on the phone and just FaceTiming with him.
Okay.
And it turned out great.
It sounded great. I listened.
I
saw the clips on Instagram, and I also just listened to your episode with my friends Lindsay and Kayla, which was fantastic.
Yeah. So Kayla introed us to you. You introed us to Micah. This is all one big happy family.
We're very incestuous here at SMBS.
PR family.
Yeah. And I've been a publicist for almost 14 years now, and I've also been in social media almost as long. And I met Kayla and Lindsay. I met them through Social Media Club Los Angeles. I was a board member for 8 years,
but not anymore.
No, I was a board member this year until about July.
Okay.
My career I've been a freelance publicist since the end of 2017, and just like my workload got so massive, and I'm still kind of learning how to be a freelancer and work for myself. I think it takes a while to get into that, and I just found myself with so much work, which is, first world problem.
Right.
I'd love, I should be so lucky to have that year round. And I just felt like I'm the kind of person who, like, if I do something, I do it 110%. And if I can't do it 110%, I'm not going to do it. I don't like to set myself up for failure.
Right.
So I thought about, what was best for me and what was best for the board, because I do care about their success. And I just felt like it was time for me to, after 8 years,
pull back.
Pull back. I mean, it's a volunteer organization, and if I don't even have time to give them volunteer time, like I just, I had to step back.
And I've
done my time. I was the president for 2 years. I was on the board for a total of 8 off and on. Like, Lindsay is just a superior president. She's so good at it. She's so much calmer than I am. So, let them do it. And I still go to the events.
Sure.
I love being just like a regular member. It never even occurred to me that I could just go.
Show up, talk,
hang,
up and like maybe learn a few things.
Learn stuff. Yeah.
How'd you get in the PR in the first place?
Good question. So it's not a long story. I went to film school initially. I went to NYU. I went to film school. I was a screenwriting major. I will edit down the long story part, but basically 9/11 happened right after I graduated from film school. My plans to stay in New York got kind of ruined that way. Like, there wasn't a lot of economy in New York at the time. People were leaving. Businesses were temporarily closing down. I mean, the city was just a mess.
Sure.
I'm sure you can imagine, and if you're too young to imagine, Google it. But I ended up moving back to Los Angeles, and suddenly was like having this crisis of, what do I want to do? Do I really want to be a screenwriter? Do I want to live that like struggling artist life? Do I want to live with my parents until I'm 40? I was having this like pre-midlife crisis kind of, what does it all mean? And I didn't know what to do. And I worked at a law firm for 4 years as an office manager. I was an entertainment law firm. Actually learned a lot about the industry just working there and being a fly on the wall. Yeah. It shockingly was. Yeah. And super nice guys. They're still practicing. Really nice guys.
That's surprising too.
Also, yeah, right. Well, lawyers. I think, I kind of lucked out. They were all fathers of daughters. So, I mean, maybe that had something to do with it. Sure. Just 3 really nice Jewish dads. And I was like their daughter by whatever. I was their office daughter.
Sure.
So anyway, I worked there, but halfway through the law firm experience, I was like, well, this isn't a career. Like I don't want to be, like I said, I like to give 110%. And like I had given everything as an office manager, there's not a lot of room for growth. And I wasn't planning to go to law school. I wasn't planning to be a lawyer. It wasn't like you can be promoted. I was never going to be a partner in the practice. Right. So I started to think about like, what could I do? And all I ever knew since I was 7 years old was that I did want to do something in entertainment. It always changed. Sometimes I wanted to be a singer. Sometimes I wanted to be an actress or a dancer or a writer, but I always wanted to be in entertainment. And I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had a screenwriting degree from NYU. And it doesn't really open doors in Los Angeles, much to my surprise, because you're competing against the USC grads and the UCLA grads and the AFI grads and the kids that are networked locally with local alumni. And maybe if I'd stayed in New York, it would have gone differently for me, but there weren't a lot of doors opening for me. So I just decided to like go to grad school, and I still didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I picked communications as a major because it seemed broad. And it honestly, like at the time I was like, well, I went to film school, so I never really took math or science in college. I had to take a little of it, but I didn't really feel educationally equipped to go get an MBA. Never, I'm just being honest. I'm not, my brother is an exceptional mathematician. He's actually works in finance and accounting at Disney. So like, let him handle that stuff.
Okay. So you got the ticket hookup?
Well, no, that's a whole other story, but no, but, and not my brother's fault. It's just the way his employment with them works. But anyway, so I majored in communications, and the very first class I took at USC, I started over a summer. I took one class, and I went at night so that I could keep working at the law firm and pay my bills. And the first class I took was these 2 guys named Judson Furden, I think, and Josh Mooney. Josh and I are still friendly. I believe the class was called Entertainment and the Internet. And this was in 2006, and the term social media didn't exist yet. Twitter was still TWTTR. I was literally like the 9,003rd person to join Twitter, something like that. Wow. I was on MySpace. I was on Friendster.
You weren't on the Facebook?
Well, so I started going to USC and taking this class, and at the time you had to have a current .edu to join the Facebook. And all the kids, I was 26, so I was a little bit older than most of the grad students, because most of them came right out of college. They were all like, oh, you have to join the Facebook. You have a new EDU email. And I was like, great, I'm going to get on it. So I did. And this particular class was about social media, even though we weren't calling it that. It was how to use internet platforms to enhance a brand. And our final project that semester was to create a company and how you would use social media to like sell it. I don't remember. Ours had something to do with having a talk show on Amazon, and boy, were we forward thinking, right? Like, isn't that crazy? Wow. Yeah. So I was like, but I was hooked.
And that was like, Amazon Books probably just at the time.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I was hooked. I was like, I love this shit. Like, this is it. I want to use this internet stuff. Like, I was
the interwebs.
The interwebs. Yeah. And then the following fall, I took a class called, I think it was called like Image Management, with a guy named Dan Durbin, and that was about public relations. And I thought, wait a second, why isn't anybody in public relations using social media? Like, why isn't anyone doing both things in conjunction with one another? Why don't I do that? And so I did. And my thesis paper when I graduated was about how, so by then, I think by 2008, when I graduated, the term social media was in existence. And my graduate thesis was, you have to propose a hypothesis, right? So my hypothesis was that social media was going to revolutionize the entertainment industry. And everyone was like, no, it's a fad, and I was like, I mean, I'm right? Yeah. So and my thesis was, I think it was like 72 pages long. I had to present it and argue it and defend it. And, the whole thing you do with a thesis, for those who don't know, a panel of professors sit in front of you and you have to basically summarize your thesis and prove it and defend it against their questions of you. I got a very high grade on it. I was lucky that most of my friends at this point all worked in the entertainment industry. So I had access to a lot of coworkers and executives. And I remember I talked to a producer on the show Big Brother on CBS, which was one of the first shows to use the internet to dictate the outcome of a show, because they would have people vote online for things to happen in the house. And so I was able to talk to him. I think his name was Rich Meehan, Scott.
You're good with names.
Yeah, right.
Wow. I couldn't tell you one professor's name.
Not always. I have a really weird memory. Like I could tell you what hotel room we stayed in on a vacation in like 1987. I couldn't tell you for the life of me what I had for dinner last night. Like, not a clue.
Yeah, you're one of those. Yeah.
It's a very strange thing going on up there. So basically, like halfway through my tenure at USC, I went to this like jobs workshop on a Saturday. It was supposed to be educational. We were actually specifically instructed not to bring our resumes. It was not to mooch off these generous alumni who had come back to talk to us. I ignored those instructions. I gave my resume to the senior vice president of corporate communications for Hallmark Channels. She seemed really nice. She apparently at the time was having a really hard time finding an assistant, and poof, halfway through grad school, I had my first job in the entertainment industry. I was a publicity assistant at the Hallmark Channels.
Because you handed her your resume then?
Well, that was on a Saturday. I ended up going in for an interview on Monday. She offered me the job the next day. I gave 2 weeks notice at the law firm, who were extreme, they knew that my time with them was getting limited. Went over to Hallmark Channel. I worked at Hallmark as a assistant. I got promoted at some point, but I was there 4.5 years, and I've kind of bounced around ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you worked for companies until 2017, and then you went freelance.
Yeah.
So when you left, did you have people you're working for already, or were you just like, fuck it, I'm gone, now let me find people? Or do you typically work with, I know like for this case, with Micah, you work with Micah. But,
Micah hired me himself, Okay.
But so do you typically work with like a single person, or do you do brand consulting? Like, are you doing both of that?
Well, one of the benefits of being a freelance publicist is that I get to pick and choose my own clients, right? Whereas before, for example, I was most recently the head of PR and social media for an independent film distributor. My responsibility was to promote whatever they were putting out, even if I thought the movie was garbage, even if it was a horror movie. I hate horror movies. I'm a wimp. It was my responsibility because that was my client, my sole client. So the benefit of being freelance is that I can say, no, I don't think this is a fit for me. So I get to pick and choose, and I've gotten to work on some really cool projects as a result of that. I get to work with individuals like Micah, who's a director. And so in that instance, it's a little tricky because technically my client is Micah, not the film, but the film is his film, right? But I do want to make sure he's getting mentioned. Sometimes my client is the movie itself, whereas I'm hired by the distributor of the film or the producers. So my job is to get the film reviewed and get people to interview the actors in the film and make sure that sites like Fandango are listing it and that sort of thing. I've also worked on web series. I've worked on musicians. I do have some music history. Like I have some music experience in my background. I worked with one of the former American Idol contestants when she launched an album.
Kelly Clarkson?
No. But
it's just the first one that came to my head.
No. But I'm a big Kelly fangirl. I just went to a taping of her talk show.
Did you?
I did. She's awesome.
I saw this on our TV one of these days.
What is she on? What is? I saw that she had a talk show.
She's syndicated, I think. So she tapes at NBC. I think here locally in Los Angeles, she airs the hour before Ellen on Channel 4.
That's
probably a nice slot.
Nice. I could be wrong, but I think Ellen might be a producer on her show. I'd have to check that.
Okay.
But yeah, her show is great. It's actually we're getting on such a tangent here, but
hey, we do that.
Her
that's the BS part of things.
Excellent. Yeah. Her talk show is, I guess it had like the biggest debut week of any talk show in a very long time. Wow. So that's
people
great.
love her.
Talk shows. Yeah. She's adorable.
Yeah,
she really is. She's very genuine. Being at the taping was a lot of fun, because you get to see like what happens in between shoot and. She nothing changes. She is the same person off camera as she is on camera. She is just a big dork. She's lovely. Yeah. She's so cute. I mean, she's cracking jokes about how her hair is not really her hair, and that she's hormonal and taking thyroid medication, and that's why she loses her hair. And half of the stuff is on camera, half of it isn't. She's great.
Yeah.
But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, so I worked with, I've worked with musicians. I've had a lot of cool opportunities, so like getting to work with Micah, who is a director. Another one of my clients right now is the director of an IMDb animated series called You're Not a Monster. I also.
So how many, when you're working with clients, how many right now do you have per, like, I don't for Micah specifically? Is he hiring you for just to lead up and then post?
I mean, it
film, or is it
it varies.
Right.
It varies. I've had clients hire me when they're in production. So, in that situation, I'm often responsible for going to set, bringing a photographer, making sure photos are getting taken, maybe potentially having press visit the set during the shoot.
Gotcha.
Putting together a press kit so that when they're promoting the film later, they have it.
Yeah.
In Micah's situation for Chuck and Tito, his 30 for 30, I was brought on just to promote him and the launch of the film. So I've only been with him about 3 weeks, and I'll probably be with him for about 2 more. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it varies. And most of my clients, the majority of the people I work with are in the independent film space, and their budgets are very limited.
Sure.
And I chose that path because I have a personal passion for indie film, and a lot of those guys bring me on for 4 weeks, 6 weeks. It's very short-lived because their budgets are so constrained. And a lot of people, when they're making their movie, because their budgets are so tight, they don't think about publicity until later, which I get. I mean, you have to prioritize. Obviously, getting the film made is more important.
For them, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then also sometimes I'm doing social media. Sometimes I'm just doing PR. Sometimes I'm doing both. I have one client right now, and I'm just handling social for him. So it really varies. But like I said, that's the fun part about being a freelancer. I get to pick and choose, and I get to work on stuff that I wouldn't normally get to work on, and it's super fun.
Yeah.
Other than like music and film, do you have any other like preference? Or like what a client would look like?
What a client would look like?
You.
Or spaces. Me? Does it look 6 foot to?
I mean, preferably he looks like Brad Pitt.
Okay.
I'm very aware, by the way, that this microphone, I'm like drinking tea, I'm swallowing.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry, everybody.
It's whatever.
My client, I mean, I just want someone who, so here's the thing I have found, especially with when you get to like an A-lister or, because, I like indie film, but indie film often involves like a Chris Evans, or these guys, they do make independent films, right? So I have gotten to work with some pretty top tier talent, which is a lot of fun. What always is disappointing or frustrating to me is when they say, like, I will do whatever it takes to get this film out there. And then it's like, well, great. Here are like 19 interview opportunities. And their personal publicist will be like, well, we're only going to do 2 of them.
Sure.
So like my ideal client is someone who is really willing, like genuinely willing to do everything they can to promote a film, who is going to make themselves available to do it. A lot of times these actors make these projects as favors, or they know the director's a friend. So they make the movie and then they move on to their next project and we never hear from them again. That's always a bummer. I get that, like, to get an indie film out there, sometimes you need to get like Tom Cruise to be in your movie just to get it sold. But then unfortunately Tom's off to make Mission Impossible 7 or 17,
Yeah, and it's just another
on top of it. Yeah.
And I'm just arbitrarily picking names. By the way, I've never worked with Tom Cruise, but I'd like to. Call me. He's
actually listening. Definitely.
Oh, good. Yeah. Hi, Tom.
Yeah. Tom's a big fan of Business of BS.
Oh, well, definitely don't tell him about my obsession with Scientology.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's so back to what's my ideal client: genuinely willing, available, preferably someone who understands gratitude. There's a saying, the publicist is always the first one to get blamed and the last one to get credit. I have, unfortunately, in 13 years, have found that to be true. So we love to hear thank you. We love to hear good job, just like everybody else.
Well, that's funny because when we've done stuff with brands with athletes, is usually athletes, fitness people. Some of the bigger fitness names have PR people they work with, and it's usually like, damn it, we got to go through the PR person, like because it's usually just a wall.
Yeah.
And it's like, we haven't had positive experiences with like PRs, agents, managers. It's usually like, and it's not like they're assholes. It's typically, it's usually just like a wall to get through what you're trying to do. And then it like takes forever and then communication's not great and yada, yada.
Yeah. Well, and I'm in the same boat because I don't typically represent individuals unless they're directors. But yeah, when I work on a movie, for example, I worked on this really fun little indie comedy called Austin Found when I was at my last job as a distributor.
That's a cool name.
Austin Found, right? Cute.
Yeah.
Linda Cardellini, Craig Robinson, Patrick Warburton. I'm just like blanking, but it was like an ensemble of comedic actors, all you have heard of. And instead of being able to, like, for example, book Linda on like a talk show, I've got to go to her publicist. So like, even though I'm the publicist on the movie, I've still got
to go to all these individual publicists.
Got to go to all these publicists. And, whereas let's just, again, arbitrarily picking a name since I mentioned her, let's just say Linda Cardellini was in this movie and had a great experience making it and is friends with the director. If I was going to ask Linda, will you do an interview with, XYZ, she might say yes, but because I've got to go to the publicist and the publicist makes their own decisions, sometimes without asking the client, without asking a Linda or whomever, the publicist says no. So, I'm in the same boat you guys are in that sense, right?
Sure.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah, 100%.
It definitely is. Like, there's one guy I'm thinking about specifically, and reached out to the PR person. The PR person was very short and was like, what are we making? Essentially. Like, that's not what they said. And it was like, wait, is the PR person kind of being a dick? Or is it going from the, I almost said his name, idiot.
Oh, don't do that.
Whatever. Bleep.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Damn it. Or if it's like coming from that person, like, dude, who's, but it's not a good look.
But they're representing
that's
them,
that's your front door.
Well, and it's hard, right? And I think a lot of these actors don't. Well, first of all, I think some actors hire their publicists to be the bad guy so that they don't have to.
And that makes sense too.
And that's fair. And I have told the Micahs and the Franks and the clients of mine, I'm like, let me be the bad guy. That's what you pay me for. Like, put me on copy on the email so that if you email someone and they don't respond to you, let me be the one who hits reply all and says, hey guys, we're still waiting for an answer here. Why should you have to do that? Right? Let me earn my retainer.
Yes.
So I get that. But at the same time, I think a lot of these actors maybe, oh, hello.
Oh,
slap the shit out of the hand.
Mission Impossible. I think he's dropping from the ceiling.
I think a lot of these actors also don't realize that sometimes it could be harming their reputation, not necessarily with consumers, but with the people like me of the world, right? So like next time my distributor wants to acquire a film and I see that, John Smith is in this movie, I'm going to say, hey, before you acquire that movie, just so you know, that guy's publicist is an asshole and he will not be doing press for us. I don't care what he says. I don't care like who says they're buddies with him.
Yeah.
The publicist is going to turn everything down. And maybe the distributor will be like, okay, we're not going to acquire that film. So it behooves you to know what your publicist is turning down and not turning away. So it's an interesting game we all play.
I was gonna say because it's different for everybody too. So like some publicists might be playing the bad guy role, but some might not even be communicating with the client and just taking on the role.
Yeah, the best though is when I get into a rare situation, like for example, I do occasionally get to work with an actor who just says yes to whatever, who genuinely believes that this indie film deserves a chance and wants to promote it however they can. And even though their publicist is kind of a dick, they're like, just go to me. Here's my number. Just text me or just email me or go to my personal assistant instead. So that has happened. That's always a lot of fun. And then I feel like I'm getting away with something.
Yeah.
How
are you getting most of the people you work with? Is it typically
word of mouth? Yeah. I do a little bit of hustling. But like I said, I've been in publicity in one form or another for almost 14 years. So I'm really lucky that a lot of people know me and trust me and give my name out. I got to work with Micah through a friend of mine, Lauren Rentschler, who has her own PR agency called William Raymond Communications. She primarily represents NFL athletes. and a few other professional athletes. I don't think she's limited to just football. You guys should meet her. She lives right over here, too.
Deal. Intro us.
Intro. See, here we go.
Yeah. These mics are portable. Let's walk right down there.
Let's just go down to her.
Yeah.
Knock. She lives by this great little cafe that I like to go. Anyway,
do tell.
So anyway, someone came to her and said, "Hey, do you know anyone who does documentaries?" And she's like, "I've got the perfect person for you. I have done sports documentaries before also." And lo and behold, there we go. So like, I get a lot of my business that way. Word of mouth, friend of a friend. I always joke, if you refer me, you can expect a very nice gift. I do. I love to send people this amazing chocolate cake when they refer business.
Whoa.
So,
Good to know.
Whoa.
Blackmail.
Whoa.
Good to know.
So yeah, that's genuinely how I've gotten like 90% of my business is word of mouth. It's been really nice. Yeah. When I left my last company, someone else who had left the company just like a month before me was at a film distributor, and like literally a day after I left that job started hiring me. So I was off and running very quickly. It was very overwhelming, but very exciting.
Yeah.
So,
well, you're in the relationship business.
Yes. Public relations. I think people forget that. Relations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. People, I'm sure
A publicist is only as good as their relationships, their press contacts. I used to say only as good as their Rolodex, but no one uses Rolodexes anymore.
What's that?
Yeah, right.
I've had dad still has one.
Don't joke.
Sure
I just spoke at I spoke a few weeks ago at a Cal State Northridge PR club meeting thing, and I asked them how many of you know what a Rolodex is, and I think only half of them raised their hand. Rightfully so. These kids are 18 years old. Yeah. They grew up in an age they were born. I mean, I can't even imagine. They didn't live in the 1900s. Like
they didn't. Right?
So
wow. They didn't have to pay for text. So like when your friends would text you, you'd be like, dude, I don't have text. Don't text me.
Oh my God. Remember when text wasn't free?
Oh,
what did we do?
Yeah.
I was just joking the other day. I used to find my way around. When I turned 16, I had a Thomas guide.
Nice.
Did you guys have Thomas guides?
I did not, but I know what you're talking about.
For those who don't know, it was a giant spiral bound book that everyone had in the car. And it was literally a book of maps. And like Christopher Columbus, you had to find your way around the city. This was pre-internet, pre-MapQuest and Google Maps. Yeah. And then I think the graduation was too, like Googling or MapQuesting your directions and printing them out. Yeah. And then you had this document on your dashboard or on the seat next to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't take it for granted, kiddies. You have it so easy now.
Especially in LA, I would not be able to get around LA.
Oh my God.
Think about having a map. Like think about coming here on a map.
It does nothing for you.
Well, I mean, and the joke in my family is like, I'm not blessed with a great sense of directions. Like I could get lost.
I'm the worst.
I could get lost going to the refrigerator. So my brother is amazing. If you like spun him around 30 times and said which way is north, he would just tell you. But me, I'm like, what's north? I don't have a clue.
Well, we were sitting the other day and Kayla was telling Tim about, we were filming this event, and Kayla was like, all right, you're going to go here, turn right this place, turn left there, turn right there. And Tim was like, okay, like had it. And I was like, I have no idea where.
You're like, how did I end up in Chico? What?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. And thank God for like GPS and maps and things now, because
you don't even need to think about it.
Yeah. It's great for someone like me. I can't do it. Yeah. I remember one time my brother and I were driving home from a Kings game. We're big hockey fans. And he was like, oh, you want to do something fun? And I'm like, fun means like we're going out for ice cream, right? No. Fun to him was like turning off the GPS and just finding his way home. And I was like, are you crazy?
That is crazy.
To him, that's fun. And I'm like sitting in the front seat like, why are you driving like a crazy person?
Yeah.
So, and if my mom is still listening to this, she's laughing right now.
Yeah. That's funny.
So it does sound like fun, though.
Yeah. It doesn't sound fun.
No, it sounds terrifying to me. No.
Relationship wise, obviously, again, it's a relationship business.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of their stuff is similar-ish. Are you sending, when you have put together your press kits, you put together your interviews, that kind of stuff, is it the same types of people typically you're reaching back out to saying, hey, I know we loved you with this film. Now I have this other film. Are you interested? Like, is it fairly cyclical as far as the types of people?
It can be. I mean, because I work on a lot of independent films, I am dealing with a lot of the same press. But then, you get into genres, right? So like, for example, if I'm on a horror film, I'm definitely reaching out to the websites that specifically cover horror and maybe even sci-fi and like nerd fandom if it applies. If it's something involving sports, there's a whole another slate of websites.
Business and BS podcast.
Business and BS. Yes. There are a whole bunch of other things I can reach out to. So it just depends on the genre of the piece of the client. But yeah, I mean, almost always I'm reaching out to the same people, like Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline.com. Those are what we call the trade publications. Those are the biggies. And we're in a really interesting time right now in the entertainment industry because there is more content than ever before. There are more distribution apparatuses than ever before. And there's all these OTTs. And OTT, for anyone who's listening who doesn't know, means over the top. So it's anything on top of television. So like your Netflixes, your Rokus, your Amazon, etc. Those are OTT platforms or devices, depending. And it's just, there's so much content, but the amount of press available to us has not changed, right? So they've become even more picky and more selective. Okay. And Netflix is very sexy. So if you're not on Netflix, but you're on something smaller, like maybe a Tubi or a Pluto, although Pluto's growing. They
just got bought, didn't they?
They did, yeah. I think Pluto is Viacom or Paramount, something like that. Yeah. So I think, it's hard to get press coverage even more so than ever before. So thank God there's 700,000 podcasts, and thank God there's an internet, and there's, influencer marketing is a whole other beast. I know you guys talked a little bit about that with Lindsay and Kayla a couple episodes back, but thank God there's influencers, because I will do whatever is in the best interest of my client to get people to talk about the film or the product or the series, what have you. Yeah. So I need all of those things to exist now. It's really hard to get coverage for the little guy. Huh.
Did you do any influencer ones with him?
For Chuck and Tito? Yeah. No, I didn't.
Was that more just because you were Micah and not?
I was just Micah's publicist.
I wonder how that fit would be.
Yeah. I've done a lot of. I've been working with influencers for a decade. I mean, it's something that is trendy now, but when I started doing it, less so. I used to work at a PR agency called Think Jam. Okay. Tremendous agency. They do amazing work. And a lot of their clients are in the home entertainment space. So when I worked with them, one of our clients was a pre-Disney 20th Century Fox home entertainment. And we created a program for Fox at the time called Fox Home Ent Insiders. And this was it was like a Tumblr site. And if you were a member of the Insiders, you had a login and you could join. And we gave you exclusive access to screeners and giveaway prizes and things that you could put on your blog. Right. So it was like an early, and we didn't pay them money because the compensation was the exclusive access. Right. They were getting access to things that other people weren't. Nowadays, you probably couldn't get away with that. I would probably have to give them all hundreds of dollars to participate, because a lot of influencers are charging now. But so like working with influencers, I've done it. Is the answer.
Just not for this podcast.
Not with Chuck and Tito. No. I mean, look, I could, but I'd probably have to talk to you guys, because I've never dealt with MMA influencers.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're cheap.
Yeah. They're a lot more accessible than
say that.
They are. I remember talking to a girl one time.
You say they're affordable.
Yeah. Affordable.
Cheap,
whatever. Quality investment. So I remember talking to a lady who's a big name fighter. At the time, she had like 315,000 followers on Instagram and big across platforms. And we were talking to somebody else who's was on a reality show and had 330,000 followers. Yeah, hers were more engaged, but it wasn't that huge of a difference.
Sure.
And it was
that's the key rate, by the way, engagement. Like, I don't care if you've got 10 million followers if only 5 of them are buying it.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were working with a brand, and they were doing a campaign. It was like a June launch or something. They wanted one static post. And the girl who was on the reality show and was very savvy from social, it was $3,000 for the one post.
Okay.
And the other girl, $300. And I was like, you're just not charging enough. Like, based on where she was and looking at kind of her back end, I was like,
so are you saying that the girl charging $300 had better engagement?
No. She was slightly less. Oh, okay. But it wasn't tenfold.
Wasn't a noticeable difference.
Yeah. And I said that to her. I said, you should be charging more, just FYI.
Yeah. She was just more focused on her MMA career and not anything else.
And she's with she's with a big agency. I don't know. That probably doesn't make it that obvious who it is, but maybe it does.
Well, it's funny because there are look, in my business, we're used to dealing with the William Morris's, CAA, like those agents, right? Yeah. But now people are bringing on agents just for influencer type business. It's a whole separate agency now. It's really interesting. I just did an influencer campaign with one of my film distributor clients, and I was looking for influencers, and I said, put kind of like an APB out, right? Looking for influencers. Do not want to go through an agency. I want to deal with influencers directly. And I get this nasty email from an agent who was like, nasty is probably overstating, but it did eventually get nasty. He was like, if you don't mind my asking, like, why I rep so-and-so and so-and-so, and why don't you want to deal with an agent? And I was like, because I don't want to have emails like this.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like, I just want to, and I don't want my influencer to upcharge me because they're going to have to give an agent 10%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I want to pay you $500 and I want to pay you $500.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay you $550 because you have to give $50 to your agent. So I'm working on an independent film. My budget is limited. I am perfectly capable of running an influencer campaign on my own. I do not need 15 middlemen involved also, right? So the email back and forth with this guy, like, he was trying to change my mind. I was trying to say, I've been doing this a long time. You're not going to change my mind.
Yeah.
So and unfortunately, none of his clients got business out of it. So whatever.
Yeah.
But the influencer culture, it's really, really, it's tedious. It's a lot of work. It's very hard. And I'm an influencer too. I have a niche, or what I guess they would call now, I'm a micro influencer. I'm not really sure. There's all this.
Sure, yeah.
But I have a separate Instagram account where I exclusively post about brunch. Like, that's it. I just really like brunch, and it became a thing. And people comp me meals. I could probably be asking for payment, but I don't. Right?
Yeah, it's cool.
Brunch is fun. I just like to get free food.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Where's the best brunch on the west side?
On the west side?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Give me top 3 then.
So like when you say west side, do you mean like Santa Monica or like West LA?
I'm saying Santa Monica down to like Manhattan Beach.
Oh goodness. Okay,
west of the 405.
Manhattan Beach Post, excellent brunch, superior brunch.
Okay. Noted.
Right. You want something? Oh God, what's it called? The Misfit.
Okay.
On it's over by the 3rd Street Promenade.
Yep.
Like, I think it's off on Broadway?
Arizona or something? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
One of those side streets.
I can see the sign.
Misfit, super fun brunch, excellent Bloody Mary. I love Bloody Marys. I'm not a mimosa person. Okay. I'm a Bloody Mary person. I just had a great brunch experience at Ingo's Tasty Diner on Wilshire.
Not heard of one of these.
Right? Okay. Well, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, that's why they call it.
We did follow the page.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah. What was it? What was it called?
Ingo's Tasty Diner. And don't be deceived by the way it looks outside. On the outside, it looks like it's a deli that's been here for like 300 years. Okay. You walk inside and it's like going back to like the 40s. And they have live jazz playing, and the food is amazing. An unbelievable Bloody Mary, like maybe one of the best I've ever had.
Okay.
Just the most fun experience. Such a cool vibe. Like I was happy to go there and have a free meal. And it's, because I don't always honestly, I don't always like the place as much as I liked that one. So that was lovely. So highly recommend it.
Are these people reaching out to you and saying, come here for brunch, or you're going there
sometimes,
and you reach out to them?
A lot of people, and I have an advantage because I am a publicist. So a lot of people in PR use media databases that we subscribe to. And so I can type in sailing and find everyone who writes about sailing. So I went ahead and put myself in there as somebody who covers food because I have the advantage of having access to that platform. Although anyone can do it. You don't have to have a subscription. You just have to know to look for it. But I get a lot of pitches that way about food-related stuff. I've developed some relationships with hospitality PR representatives, but also because I have this Instagram account and I engage with restaurant accounts and they follow me back, if they comment on something I post, I'll be like, hey, by the way, if you're ever hosting influencers for coverage, let me know. I don't charge. Hosting means you're going to pay for my meal.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah. That just kind of goes. I end up with 2 or 3 free brunches a month.
That doesn't suck.
No, it doesn't suck. It's lovely. I always try to take different I always have to have a +1 because then I can order more food and I don't want to sit there as one person and look like a glutton. So, I'll bring my mom or I'll bring one of my friends who doesn't get to, I try to break it up.
I like Bloody Marys.
Okay. Good to know. Right? Good to know, guys.
I don't, but I like food.
Yeah. No, we'll go. We'll go brunch. We'll brunch.
Deal.
We'll brunch.
So,
yeah.
Before we get you out of here.
Yeah,
no I know we have time here. 10 minutes.
Okay.
And then you got to get to the car.
Right. There's a street cleaning happening.
Street cleaning, yeah.
Very serious.
Let me before you go in. You know how many times I've heard the street sweeping? Not here, but in Santa Monica. And by the time you hear the street sweeping, you're like, fuck. Got that $74
Well, I have at home right now. They're putting up a ton of apartment buildings in my neighborhood. And this morning I was woken up. My dog howls at sirens.
Oh, no.
So there was some kind of machine happening at the building they're constructing right behind me. And I guess he thought it was like a fire engine. So I wake up at 5:30 this morning to just a howling puppy. And I was like, oh God, this is so terrible. But like also it's really adorable. But yeah, I'm used to hearing construction 24 hours a day right now.
You're kind of in my world then, where I wake up at 4:30 every day for
you have a baby. Yeah.
Same thing.
Well, my brother had his baby like a month and a half after I got my puppy, and I was like, oh good, so we're both sleep deprived. Like I was
we're on
joking.
the same page here.
I was joking. I was like, at least you can put yours in a crib and walk away. Mine has to be taken outside.
True.
Like,
True.
Yeah.
True. Yours can also feed itself.
Yeah. No, I mean pros and cons. Pros and cons.
Yeah, right.
I would never in a million years try to argue that having a dog is harder than having a baby human.
There's a Bill Burr comedian bit, and he's got a bit about like he does that where he's like talks about his dog. He's like, I got a dog. He's like, my dog bites someone, he gets put down. Your dog bites someone, he just gets in trouble. He's like, I got higher stakes. It's a funny bit.
That's great. I have to look that up.
Like 2014 or something.
I like Bill Burr. That's funny.
I do too.
He's the best. He's the best. I met him once. I think have I told this on here?
I don't know.
So I took advantage of an opportunity. So I listened to his podcast, and not so much anymore, but did at the time a lot. And he was talking about how he was putting together a home gym in his new place.
Yeah.
It's probably 3 years ago now.
Probably just like the Rock's gym, right?
No, but it's probably nice. And he was talking about like putting it together, and he's like, I'm talking about Rogue. Rogue's the brand name. I'm talking about Rogue all the time. They should just send me some free shit. They didn't. He bought the stuff, then they did. So he's like, I got all these free weights. What the hell am I going to do with it? And he talked about it on his podcast on Monday, and I immediately tweeted at him. I said, hey, I'll come get those weights off your hands right now. Like, tell me where to go.
Yeah.
So he tweets back at me, surprisingly.
Shut up.
Pretty quickly, and was like, hey, I've got a show tonight, 7:30. Here's the address. Show up. I'll get you to him. So I show up. He gives me the brand new weights. I put them in the trunk of Timmy and High's car, his girl. And he's like, hey, do you want to go to the show? I can just comp you a ticket. And he
so
was
now
like,
you're like best friends with Bill Burr?
Couldn't have been any nicer.
That's awesome.
A lot of people like that, you never know. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, some people even seem cool, and you're like, this is the biggest dickhead of all time.
Yeah.
But count me the ticket. So I sat in there, watched the show by myself for an hour.
That's amazing.
Drove home and then sold the weights for $500 like within a month. Yeah. So it was, I took advantage of an opportunity.
Oh my God. Does Bill Burr know that he gave you weights just for you to turn around?
Probably not.
Well,
he probably would love that actually.
Yeah. Well, the thing he was bitching about, he was like, I was going to take him to play it against sports, and he's like, but I know I'm going to sell him to him for $1 and they're going to sell him back for $1,000.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want them just taking my money.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he
talk about
feels
business
good.
And BS.
But it also, I needed the money at the time, so that $500 went a long way.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it. That's great.
Yeah. So there's my Bill Burr story.
You were about to say something else though. I forget, and I interrupted you.
Last thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, we got to get out of here. Now we have 7 minutes.
Damn it.
For as far as like PR biz,
yes.
There's a gazillion things within it. How do you think people should be changing and improving within how they currently are in the space? Because I know it's PR 10 years ago, 12 years ago is totally different than it was 3 years ago, which is totally different than it is now. Where do you see things needing adjustment? Because you're in the biz, we fringely see it. And then how do you adjust on the monthly, yearly basis to fit what's going on in the entertainment world?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of what's happening right now is the big PR agencies they're losing staff like crazy. A lot of people are leaving and starting their own boutique agencies, and they're growing in skill sets, right? You can't just be a PR person anymore. You have to be a me and like also know about social media or marketing or, people can't always afford to hire a person to do 5 separate things. They need one person who can do all 5, right?
Sure.
So I think the way we're changing right now is that the big agencies need to acquire more talent that has a broader skill set. I think that if the big agencies don't want to keep losing their staff, they're going to have to offer more educational opportunities and more exciting client opportunities. Do you think that's the thing they would do? Yeah, some of them do. Yeah. I think that for freelancers like me, like you better be out there not just doing PR. I'm not saying you all need to be like social media experts and be able to run ads and do all that stuff, but you better have like a general knowledge of the space at least. maybe I think what's really smart and something that I think I did really well is you have a network of third-party vendors that you can partner with so that you can offer those services to your clients at a reasonable cost. And
that makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, I think people need to broaden their skill sets, and I think that I don't think there's a lot of room left right now for pride. Like we're not all going to be in the Wall Street Journal. Like you're going to have to do press with like, you know, Mom Blog USA. You just are. Like you can't have a lot of pride right now. And I don't mean like you literally can't have pride. I think everyone should have pride. But I just mean you can't turn your nose up at the smaller mom and pop blog in like Milwaukee, you know, because you never
maybe
know.
has 1,000 super engaged
yeah,
people.
like maybe they have only 1,000 readers, but those 1,000 readers are like ticket buying patrons of the local AMC, right? You might go to like a bigger site that has 50,000 readers, and that might look more prestigious, but their readers are probably far less engaged, right? So I just think people need to start making some exceptions to the previous rules. I think people need to broaden their scopes. That's what I think.
That was great. Yeah. We thank you.
Sometimes
Anything else,
I sound
Timmy?
deep.
No.
Yeah, it was deep. You like got all calm. I had talked all fast, and I was like, get my question, my thought in, and then you were like, oh.
It was a good finish.
Yeah, I keep thinking in the back. I don't like how I sound when I'm recorded, so I'm trying to stay calm so that I can listen to this later and not hate myself.
I used to be like that, and then
I'm sure you had to get used to it.
Yeah. After you hear yourself so many times.
Yeah, I'm sick of hearing myself. No, I'm not. Thank you, AJ.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. Again, use our code BS at ourcitycoffee.com. You'll get 15% off any and all coffee orders. You don't have to go to the store. You don't have to drink all that sugar shit at that corner coffee shop. Get some real good quality coffee. You're an adult. Step your game up. Again, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.